show, and as you can probably tell right off the bat, it's a little bit of a different show this week. We are not at the Vibrant Vine. We'll be back out there next week, but we thought there was some important issues bubbling in the community, and Lisa, being the hard-nosed journalist type that she is, really wanted to tackle them. So in the spirit of what we're hoping to accomplish on today's show, we've come down here to the park by Harmony Bridge because
that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. We're trying to encourage dialogue and bring, bridge between two pretty warring factions right now. I guess we're talking about Nancy Enns, who became quite well known here in Okanagan as
the anti-rainbow warrior, I believe, was the quote.
She came out quite strongly against the freshly painted rainbow crosswalks that were put up for Pride Week here in Kelowna. And there was immediate and vigorous backlash on social media.
That's kind of the topic we're discussing, is freedom of speech,
right?
How much are we allowed to voice our opinions without any kind of backlash? Or even when does it become criminal? Because online, things can get pretty hairy.
Yeah, people tend to treat the online world as a free-for-all, I think, for expression, and it can often get pretty out there and pretty disturbing. And there are, there are consequences to what you say, but there's also legal consequences and things to consider when you're speaking online, including, in the criminal code. There's some items about that where
in Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the freedom of speech is the right to communicate one's opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation or censorship. But that doesn't mean that you can say whatever you want. So some of the limitations include slander, libel, obscenity, pornography, sedition, hate speech, incitement, fighting words, etc. So on both sides of this debate, some people are thinking that Nancy Enns is being hateful towards the gay community, but then the backlash has been saying hateful things to her, and Nancy has been called every name in the book online and has had her life threatened. She's had people telling her to kill herself. And people are saying they're going to boycott her work, and so that's what we're trying to find out today: is how do we come to a common ground where we can be respectful and have different opinions, and have that conversation in a safe place. So, how was your week?
It was a lot of ups and downs.
You've said to me earlier, just before we started taping, Nancy was saying that you're not really on social media a whole lot.
No.
So is all this new to you? You're kind of getting
and
a big lesson in social media?
It's a little foreign to me, yeah.
Putting ourselves in your shoes this past week. So you went to the City Hall, you made your position known, and then it went on Castanet. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what happened next for you? What
was posted on Castanet was mostly true, but there were some words there that I did not say.
Like what?
Some thoughts, something about this is going to cost the taxpayers.
Okay.
Yada, yada. I don't recall saying that, so I was a little surprised by the inaccuracy of the reporting. And I actually didn't know that it was going to be posted on Castanet. The conversation was left with, well, it's interesting, your thoughts, and, keep us posted.
And then
so
bam. So when did you know that your comments sparked an outcry?
Well, the only outcry I was seeing was the personal email coming in and the telephone calls. I was like, wow, lots of, and
wow,
initially,
people are angry.
Well, initially, the first, couple hours, I was actually responding to them, hoping maybe we could have some rational dialogue, but I soon realized that wasn't going to happen. So I stopped and blocked all that, and I really didn't follow all the parody. And
you see behind us here that is actually Nancy's face on Mary Poppins flying over the rainbow-colored crosswalks in downtown Kelowna.
Looking good.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? You say you're not on social media a lot, but going out, seeing these kind of things and people are memeing you. Yeah. What do you think of this?
Well, it's like a dream come true, really. I always wanted to be Mary Poppins. And so, here's my day.
Okay, and then let's get more serious about the kind of stuff that you receive, because I know when I phoned you initially, your voicemail was very defensive. It was saying, if this is harassment, we'll be going straight to the police. So what took it to that line where you had to do that kind of message?
Well, quickly I realized, hey, I got to put some blocks up because this is getting a little out of hand and bordering criminal. So I had to take down all my social pages and block my texts and change my phone number. And
well, online they were also posting Nancy's personal cell phone number on social media and encouraging people to tell Nancy to her face or on the phone call and through email how they felt about you. Now, what does that feel to you personally, having that kind of violation of your privacy put out there?
Well, I guess I'm just going to have to err on the side of I've been misrepresented and they're misguided.
Do you hate gay people?
No, of course not.
Do you hate the gay lifestyle?
I don't approve of it, but I don't hate it. I don't approve of it.
What do you think is making people the most angry about your statement and you wanting to go the distance to remove the sidewalks?
Fear.
Fear? Fear of what?
Fear that they're going to lose whatever they think they have. And I don't know what it is. You'll have to ask that community. But
what is your stance on the rainbow sidewalks?
First and foremost, this is not a rainbow crosswalk. It is a gay flag. And for those out there that do not know what it represents, it is a gay flag and nothing but. So it's what it represents. It discriminates against me and every other choice of lifestyle.
I did look it up online to see about the origin of the rainbow flag, and it was out of, I believe, San Francisco, and it started out as being an LGBT lifestyle flag, and now a lot of people are using it to represent peace and acceptance and love for all. So is it the LGBT thing that you're against, or are you against both definitions of what it represents?
Well, I don't know if that peace thing is true, but if it is, it's also closely entwined with the gay community.
People are saying that you compared having a rainbow crosswalk to a swastika.
Yeah, that was a poor choice of words. What my point was this. It's not about the gay flag. It's about any lifestyle choice that discriminates. It could be a polygamy. It could be pro-choice. Right. I don't care what flag it is. It's discriminatory. Really, my beef is with the politicians. It's not about the gay community. That's where I've been misrepresented.
And so let's just go into the gay community, because that's a big thing. Most people are flying in here to protect the community who have faced years of discrimination and hatred towards their lifestyle.
So how does doing what happened to them to other people, how does that justify? How does that promote? How does that establish them as peaceful, loving, tolerant? But my issue is not with the gay community. I'm back to the politicians spending our tax dollars in the public square, mandating their moral beliefs and ideologies. And that's not the politician's role.
Now, you were saying to me before we started filming that you've actually fought for this group of people.
20 years ago, I fought for I'm against discrimination of any type, sort, shape, or form.
Okay.
So I fought for them 20 years ago. It's ironic that here I am being attacked, but yeah.
All right, so moving on. We talk about freedom of speech, but again, you talk about freedom, you're not free from consequences.
Right.
But where is the exact line in terms of how far can people go when they're with online bullying and shaming of the person who maybe voices an opinion that's different than their own?
My right to disagree springs from the same well as their freedom to write about what they believe. And so, they're shutting off the same well.
So what kinds of names have you been called? Have you had, like, what?
Oh, narrow-minded, bigoted, Neanderthal, racist, hateful, intolerant. The vileness of the language has been very alarming. I mean, to the depths of, the profanity. Where did they even get these words?
And how do they make you feel?
Well, it's a scary world we live in.
You said that you've also received death threats, or?
Yeah, here's another one. I hope you realize just how much hate and anger is coming your way now that you have opened your big fat mouth.
When did you know that, okay, this is too far, I need to get the police involved now?
Oh, just threats on my life.
Saying that, what did they say to you?
Not enough. Isn't that enough? Threats on my life?
Yeah, but didn't they tell you that if to kill yourself, and if you didn't kill yourself, that somebody
else would? Yeah.
somebody else, but how did that make you feel? Do you know if somebody had that much hatred towards you inside?
Well, violated and, you know.
So we did get a statement from the Kelowna RCMP in terms of online cyberbullying and that there are consequences. Freedom of speech on both terms, there are consequences to freedom of speech. So it is important that internet and computer users be mindful that what you post online is there forever, and that people reading these posts may misinterpret them differently than the intended message. Unfortunately, some people chose to use the internet as a medium to vent their frustrations. It is valuable to know that if you vent frustration on certain social media sites and threats are involved, it can constitute a criminal offense. RCMP takes threats very seriously, says Corporal Joe Duncan, spokesman for the Kelowna RCMP. The Kelowna RCMP will investigate the matter thoroughly and lay the appropriate charges.
Excellent. This was the issue.
Okay.
This is where it all began, and this is still the issue. The day is far spent for Canadians when they sit back and let their politicians promote their own ideology and moral beliefs, and moreover mandate it by smearing propaganda on public spaces which are to remain neutral and to boot with our tax dollars. Hard to believe, but it is happening right before our eyes. Politicians are not entitled to spend taxpayer dollars to voice their moral convictions or beliefs, and it's because they have taken it upon themselves. This is why we, the people at Canada Speaks, are speaking out. Unfortunately, it has not brought me here today. It is because of the vicious backlash of those who oppose my opinion. Canadians must be able to have a respectful discussion that promotes rather than stifles debate. This is what real tolerance is. Canadians are not interested in scare tactics in the aim to silence their voice. If we were, we would move to other parts of the world where oppression wins the day. But it is not here, not now, and God willing, not ever in Canada. The response is beyond comprehension. If we think we progressed into shaping this country for the betterment of all, we are greatly deceived. Government has failed to protect its people, and I have proof. At this point, I would like to remind government, our national anthem reads, "O Canada, we stand on guard for thee." That means not just outside our walls, but within our walls. Our public spaces must remain neutral. Our code of conduct allows every Canadian the right to hold to their own moral beliefs and religious convictions and freedom from discrimination. It's a sad day when our voice and our opinion finds ourselves in an open assault and full-on bullying in social media and beyond. I have received death threats, constant harassment, barraged with such hateful bigotry and intolerance. The backlash has turned into no less a witch hunt. Clearly, there are Canadians out there who think it of no consequence to incite such hatred, intolerance, bigotry in public communication. I am still of the understanding that any activity that causes a person fear is arrestable in this country. I have a right to my religious beliefs just like you do. It is a criminal offense which incites hatred in any public communicated statement. This behavior will be faced with criminal charges and will see its day in court. For all those out there that would defy the laws of the land, be prepared to be arrested. It's long overdue for Canadians to take back their voice and be heard. I am only one of many, but here I stand. For faith, family, and freedom, I stand. I realize that people are, acting knee-jerk reaction, and I don't know that I wouldn't want to really stand here and say that it represents the gay community. I don't want to go there. I don't want to believe that, so I'm not going there. But there's always a few bad apples.
Yeah, in every bunch, right? So you're not against the gay community.
Not at all.
You don't compare the rainbow crosswalks to swastikas.
No.
We've given people online the opportunity to ask Nancy, so the hashtag Ask Nancy on hashtag on the DL. And so we're going to ask Nancy some of those questions now and give her the opportunity to, have a real conversation instead of just contributing to the online shaming. So are you ready for this?
Okay.
All right. Starting off with this, Sue Miller. She wrote, "I'm so happy we have the opportunity to ask the questions to Nancy Enns. It's about creating an open dialogue about this. My thoughts are always about people having the right to speak, or the right to be who they are without fear of bigotry. It's about time we come together as human beings with the intention of acceptance and love for our fellow men. The persecution that has occurred all over the world to women, homosexuals, people of color, has got to stop with all of us collectively saying enough. I hope this crosswalk and its intention of acceptance and hope for rights for all people brings us closer to that moment." Now, I know that you joked around with Wilbur, who is the head of the LGBT community, saying, what did you say to him? You said, you guys should be paying me for this.
Well, yeah, I've promoted you and I've brought strength to the community and I've put you...
At your expense.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm okay with that if that's...
Part of it, I know you're receiving a lot of the backlash, but is part of you like, wow, look at how the communities come together to rally for a cause when they really are passionate about it?
Well, yeah, I think that's what they should do. But not like this.
But not like this, yeah.
Not like this.
So we've asked for people online to be respectful in their questions, and we don't have a lot of time to read all of them, obviously. There's a ton on there. So we picked out a few, and you can continue the conversation online at #AskNancy, #OnTheDL. So Kim, and apologies for if I'm not getting the names right here, but Kim Perpet says, how do you feel about inadvertently becoming an LGBT advocate? Did you know Crafty Kitchen has a rainbow rum drink called the Nancy? And all proceeds are donated in your name to itgetsbetter.org. There are also nail and hair salons apparently following suit with rainbow highlights, nail wraps, etc. So there's a drink for you, Nancy.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really cute. It's a little unicorn with sitting in a drink with some ice, with a fork. No, I don't drink. But if I did, I would definitely have a Nancy.
So maybe they could make a non-alcoholic Nancy for Nancy.
Sure.
All right. Mark Orient says, any plans of apologizing to the LGBTQ community in Kelowna at all?
Well, I don't have anything to apologize for, but I am here today to say I have been misaligned and misrepresented.
Michelle Spicer Lyons says, Nancy, do you have children? How would you feel about your own child if he or she was to be gay or lesbian? How would you explain your hate and intolerance to them? How do you explain a God to them who discriminates?
Well, if I had...
It's saying that you have hatred and intolerance towards
gay people. If I had gay children, I would... That's their choice.
How would you explain your hate and intolerance to them?
It doesn't exist, so I don't have anything to explain there.
Okay. And how do you explain a God to them who discriminates?
God doesn't discriminate. God sets biblical standards and moral compass for our good, not for our harm.
Okay. Michael Schmidt Desjarles, since you seem to really dislike rainbow crosswalks, will you be fighting to have all rainbow crosswalks removed within Canada, or are you just singling out Kelowna? And if this is the case, why just Kelowna's?
Okay. All crosswalks. One crosswalk at a time.
So that takes out the argument about, you may be living in Lake Country, not Kelowna. Because that was a big focus of discussion. Well, she doesn't even live here, so what does it matter? But you're taking this in
I'm a Canadian citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sydney Lawson says, you've received several negative comments from individuals. I think they're missing a couple digits there. Both in and supporters of the LGBTQ community. Do you feel you have a better understanding of the negativity they face on a daily basis, having been put into a similar situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is what you call discrimination. It's wrong, and it has to stop.
Chelsea McRandom, that is that really her name? Chelsea McRandom.
You should see some of the tags I got.
That's funny.
Like, really?
If you don't support a special interest group being recognized or receiving any special treatment, will you be taking a campaign to the government to change the fact that churches are tax exempt?
But they don't have to use them. I have to use the crosswalk. Isn't this about safety crosswalks? Well, Mary doesn't fly every day. Sometimes she walks.
So is that an issue for you, the safety? Because I had a few people saying, well, there are regulations for roads in terms of white means this, yellow means this, 2 lines means this. So if someone comes barreling through the crosswalk and they hit somebody, what if they got distracted? So that was one of the things. Was that ever?
Well, I'm fighting the gay flag, but you're right. These crosswalks.
I'm not right. It's not my words. It's just
No, but you're right about the act.
Yes.
There is the Safety Act, and ICBC will be looking at this, and these crosswalks will be gone.
Okay.
And for the safety concern, they don't meet code.
Okay. So Sheila Kerr says.
I care about safety, but
yes,
I do fly.
Okay. Yes. So Sheila Kerr says, so how's business?
Good.
Business is good.
Yeah.
Are you worried about your career?
No.
No?
No.
Asher J. Klassen says, you claimed in a previous radio interview that public space is to remain neutral. If this is the basis of your campaign for equality, why have you not spoken out against commercial advertising, which politicizes public space by promoting a spectrum of conflicting cultural, ideological, and lifestyle agendas?
I can't control that.
Okay, but you're just trying to control what
Government spending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Almost done here.
Yeah.
So Lindsay Russell says, some younger kids who are gay and don't know how to deal with all of their emotions are so lost and sometimes even get bullied to the point of killing themselves. If going to look at the Rainbow Crosswalk could make one young kid feel accepted and know it gets better and there are supportive people out there enough to stay strong and keep living, would you change your mind?
Well, that's quite a, what do they say?
They're basically saying that if one kid crosses that crosswalk who is in the LGBTQ community, and that stops them from committing suicide, knowing that there is support for them out there and the city is backing them.
And
it saves one life.
I don't have faith for that. No.
Kim Perpet says, being intolerant and being outwardly hateful are two different things. Do you realize that you'll be immortalized as a hateful bigot? The way we look now at those who used to oppose mixed race marriage.
Well, that's really contrary to what I've experienced all week. I've said nothing but to fight against discrimination and for freedom of speech, and I have been barraged with nothing but hateful, bigoted, narrow-minded, intolerant people. Like, I think the question should be asked to those that have been responding to me, not to me.
Sure. Okay, so coming up next, we've got Wilbur coming into studio. And we're going to talk. He's the head of the LGBTQ community here in Kelowna, and we're going to see if we can find a peaceful resolution for everybody involved in this hot debate.
Now, an interesting thing that came out of your conversation with Nancy was when you found out that she really doesn't have a lot of social media presence. She's
not
really,
any.
Not
I
any.
mean, this woman, I swear, and it was shocking for me to see how little she knew about what was actually going on, because the only thing that she really knew that made her understand how much hate was out there was letters and phone calls. But I mean, I personally went through about 1,000 comments online that she completely was oblivious to. And so that's another question is being oblivious to what's happening on social media, does that protect people from public shaming? Or does it kind of isolate them from what's happening in the world and keep them in some kind of a bubble?
Right.
Right.
And I think it's important, that you maybe have other points of view available to you. I know a lot of people tend to sort of filter the news and information that they get to only the sources that confirm their biases.
Right.
Which doesn't give you the opportunity to even see the other side, or that there is another side to it.
And that's how we get progress, is by being, and I have to tell you, from what I heard of Nancy online versus what I saw in the interview, some questions came into my own mind, and it was an interesting thing was that I never thought of it that way. Right. And that's why we have to have these healthy discussions, is to see, okay, well, maybe there is something in that person's perspective that has some weight that we should consider.
Right. And so I guess in the spirit of healthy dialogue and having a
building
two-way
bridges.
conversation and building bridges, you reached out to Wilbur.
I did. And I was I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know Nancy or Wilbur personally. And so I invited them both in the studio, and I originally was going to have them separated and interview them themselves. I didn't want this to turn into the Jerry Springer show or something. But meeting them, I just right away had just a feeling, you know what, I think we can have them together, and I think that we can have a respectful conversation, the three of us. And, so that's what we did.
All right, well, let's have a look at that now.
Okay. All right, here's something that you probably didn't expect to see. We've got Wilbur Turner, head of the LGBTQ community in Kelowna, and Nancy Enns, #NegativeNancy on social media, having the two of you guys together in the studio. First of all, thank you guys both for being here in the same room. And I just wanted to get, how does it feel being in the same room together?
Good.
Wilbur?
I'm glad you came down, Wilbur.
I'm happy to meet Nancy.
Yeah, likewise.
Now, it's easy for people online to say and do whatever they want with this anonymity, knowing that they don't have to face the person that they're talking about. Seeing each other as real people, does that change? I mean, you guys have had a couple phone calls.
I think it's important to have dialogue. I think it's good when we can kind of get to know who people are, and you can't really do that, even it's hard on the phone. But just through reading things online and hearing what people are saying, you don't really get to know people.
No.
It's
Right.
good to get to know people and know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
and be able to engage in some respectful and healthy dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's the whole issue that I'm trying to bring to the forefront today in our show, is what is healthy, respectful dialogue? Are we allowed to have opinions that are different without having things like what has happened to Nancy in terms of getting death threats and calling her every name in the book? How do you feel about that kind of backlash? Because I know it is in support of your community, but where's the line?
Well, I think the line has been crossed by quite a few people. I've seen, many comments. Some of them are respectful, but some of them are really, really awful. And when I was growing up, I got my mouth washed with ivory soap bars for saying "shut up" and "stupid."
Right.
And this is way beyond that.
Sure.
It's we are kind of losing that. Just
Filter?
respectful filter of, things that are not appropriate.
Well, and again,
say.
it goes back to the not having to face the person. Because back in the day, when you didn't like someone, you'd have to go up to them and say, "I don't like you." But now when you're behind your computer, it just seems like it's free range to say and do whatever you want with no consequences.
It's cheap voice.
It is, but now there are some consequences. I know that Nancy has followed up with the police on some of these hateful messages. What do you feel like in representing your community? What would be your statement on that kind of bullying or hateful speech online towards people that go against?
Well, I think it's totally unacceptable. I would really like to see people, work together. As I said, in respectful dialogue, healthy dialogue, to talk about issues, because we don't all have to agree on things.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's important to understand where people are coming from and to be able to create some bridges in the community, not burn them.
And without fear of being, so if someone does have a position that maybe goes against the grain, not have to fear that their life by expressing that opinion.
Exactly.
And Nancy, how do you feel being here with Wilbur?
Yeah, good. I appreciate him coming down, and I spoke to Wilbur earlier in the week, last week, and I felt he was sincere, and when he said that he doesn't condone what a lot of the community may or may not be doing, and he doesn't support it in any way, shape, or form, and he found it unfortunate, and I accept that as that's how he feels, and
Well,
I got some reassurance.
Right.
That,
Well, a big tone I want to set here today is just showing if we as adults want to encourage these anti-bullying movements for our kids and for kids to, and of course kids mimic adults' behavior.
Right.
So if we're online calling people the B word, C word, and die and all these things, what example are we setting for the future generations in terms of acceptance and love and tolerance, which is what you guys say that the flag really represents?
Yes, absolutely. It represents a symbol of hope and inclusivity for the LGBTQ community. So when the flag was first created, the Gilbert Baker, who is the originator, the artist who created the flag, created it at a time where equality was something that the community didn't know. It was total discrimination. It was discrimination by law enforcement. People were not allowed to be who they were. They were fired from their jobs. They lost their homes. There was just no freedom or safety at all. And that flag became that symbol of that, what people were looking for.
And what does it represent now?
It represents partly a celebration of that equality, but also that there's still work to do because there's still discrimination happening even in this city.
Okay, and some of the things I read online in terms of the rainbows is that some of the bisexual and the gay commenters on the websites said, I'm gay and I'm part of this lifestyle, but I don't necessarily love rainbows and unicorns. Like, we can't accept that all people in the LGBTQ community love rainbows.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing. They can, people can embrace it or not. What we do know in Kelowna is that, in our Pride Festival week that happened recently, we had over 3,500 people come out to our events. There was around 1,500 people in the Pride March.
Okay, and when you saw what Nancy had written to the City Council and what was posted on Castanet, what was your first initial reaction?
Well, my reaction was disappointment, I have to say, primarily because there's a term that is used a lot, and it's called the gay lifestyle. And that term is something that I don't understand why people call it that. It's kind of a term that's just thrown out there to say, you know, I don't like the gay lifestyle being rammed down my throat. That's one of the things that was said a lot by people that were against the rainbow crosswalks. And, you know, it's unfortunate that people feel that way, that feel that it is something that's being kind of pushed on people. Because, you know, for myself, I don't know what that lifestyle is. You know, I have a job, I have kids, I have grandchildren, I go to work, I pay taxes, you know, I enjoy vacations, I love living in the city of Kelowna, and that's my
Just
lifstyle.
a normal person.
I'm a normal person.
Right.
And, you know, my neighbors would tell you the same thing.
I think because you're not one of these, you're not out flaunting and flamboyant and trying to force an issue, right?
That's what I was going to
That's,
get
I
to,
think, where
was
the
the different
lifestyle-
levels,
Yeah.
the different levels of it. And this is stuff I've seen online, is talking about there are people who, just like heterosexual people,
Yeah.
who live
Yeah.
their lives
Yeah.
and whatever. And then there's the and same
Extremes.
with, you know, people in the gay community that just live their lifestyle. They're not out there. And then there's the people that are out on the streets in thongs and
Yeah.
all this
Crazy,
very
yeah.
very sexually lewd, you know, clothing
Over the top.
with, you know, dildos in their hands. And I think that's the misrepresentation that I've seen online, is people associating the entire lifestyle with that lifestyle, instead of knowing that there's varying degrees. Just like it with Christianity, there's people that go to church and do, you know, on Sundays, and they live their lives privately, and then there's people like in Westboro Church who are picketing gay soldiers' funerals, not even gay, just gay soldiers, blaming the gay community. And
Well, that guy's
so
a
you-
lunatic.
Exactly. So you can't take one group of people and say that all, it's just like all gay people probably don't like rainbows and unicorns. But, you know, where is the middle ground for everybody here, and how we can all love and respect one another and deal with, you know,
Well, I guess
differences.
that's a message to the gay community. That type of behavior harms. It doesn't promote,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Just like we have to, with our people, right? We have to say, hey, if you want to be taken seriously, you can't go running around with a shotgun and a 10-gallon hat and have hate crimes written all over your shirt. It's not going to work,
Right.
you know?
Well, I also think that this sexualization of the gay community is a stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I don't
it's a
actually.
stigma.
I really don't see it in Kelowna.
No.
This is not part of, like, it's not even.
I haven't seen it in Kelowna. I lived in
It's
West
just-
Hollywood.
yeah.
I did see it there personally.
Yeah.
I have not seen it here in the Okanagan.
And you may see it in some big cities during Pride Week when they have their Pride floats, and they, you know, it's about that sexual side of things.
Yeah.
It's certainly not limited to the gay community either.
No.
But you know, there's the naked parades, and there's all kinds of things
Yeah.
which have nothing to do with being, you know, your sexual orientation. So I think it's unfair that, you know, a city like Kelowna is equated to, you know, the community here is equated to something like that, which is a minority of a population.
How do we change that?
And how do we change that? It's through education. It's through what we're doing right here. It's through dialogue. You know, in Kelowna, I feel that the thing that disappointed me most about the negative comments about the Rainbow Crosswalk was that we have a very vulnerable youth population. And that's not unique to Kelowna. The LGBTQ youth are subject to much more harassment in schools and bullying. They're subject to being kicked out of their homes when they come out because their parents can't accept them.
Nancy, how do you feel about kids that you know, are turned away from their families and stuff in our own?
That's not an appropriate response. I mean, you know, we're to be people that are filled with compassion and empathy, and we're to help them and support them in any way we can. And that's a non-supportive approach to the situation, and it's wrong. It's
So
unhealthy, it's not productive, and it costs lives.
How do you both think that we can encourage this kind of dialogue? There's been no clause, there's been, I'm in between you, but I haven't had to do anything, like how can we encourage adults and children to, be able to talk about hard subjects, not be afraid to voice your opinion, but, be able to disagree in a productive way?
Well, I think it's really, it's about education. It's about understanding what the issues are in the community. It's about also embracing and appreciating diversity. I'd like to read something that a young person wrote online, because I think it really portrays some of the feelings of some of the younger people. Yesterday, I was downtown for dinner and I walked by about 7 o'clock last night, and there was a young girl sitting on the corner holding a sign that said, "Please don't take away our rainbow." And she was just a young person. And she said to her, this is important. This is really important because of what it's saying. There's a post from a young guy, I don't know who it is, in Kelowna. He says, "As an early 20s gay man living in Kelowna, it is truly disheartening to see all of the negative responses to the rainbow crosswalks. I am in no way a person that projects my lifestyle onto other people, but it would be nice to live in a place where I don't have to be nervous to hold my boyfriend's hand in public. Unfortunately, Kelowna still has enough," and he says hateful people, "in it, that living here is not as enjoyable as it could be. Because of this, I will be moving to a bigger city where I can openly be myself without fear of some religious person or some guy with a big truck making ignorant comments. Though with that said, I applaud the mayor for his progressive stance on the subject and is welcome to see the amount of people that are accepting."
And people in the straight community could never know what that feels like, walking in the shoes, unless they've experienced it.
And that is what's called invisible privilege.
Right.
Because if you don't understand walking in the shoes of that person, what it's like to have faced discrimination.
Well, Nancy knows now. She's got her voicemail and emails are pretty full of people's opinions. So she's got to walk in the shoes a little bit.
That's another piece of education, is for people to understand that they do have invisible privilege. And it's not, they think the system works fine, but they haven't had to walk in those shoes of that person who's afraid to walk down the street and hold the hand of the person they love.
Right. Okay. So how do we move forward? How do we close this whole debate online and end with a positive message for everybody?
Well, I think, my thoughts are, the positive message is this. We all do have the right to choose, to have an opinion, and to speak it. And that is our right as a Canadian. And we all have that right to that opinion. We don't all approve of everyone's choices, and nor should we. That would make us little clones, and I don't think that would be a very nice.
Well, we would still think that wouldn't be flat, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a very nice world to live in.
Exactly.
But we're entitled to it, and if you disagree, that's fine. But there's a way to bring a debate that is respectful, with dignity, and if you want to be taken seriously, you can't come at this or your side of things with hateful, bigoted, narrow-minded, violent approach. It doesn't work.
Are you guys going to go share a Nancy down at
We should go have one of those. They are really good drinks.
So you've had one?
I had a Nancy on, it's called the Nancy.
Nancy doesn't drink.
So we can probably have yours without the rum in it.
Yeah, there you go.
What did they said? They said exactly what's in it somewhere. It's very funny, actually.
Yeah, it's Mount Gay rum and their house-made violet.
And lifestyle lime.
Yes.
Here's what someone wrote. I just want to say
you can enjoy a Nancy in Kelowna here. What do you have there?
Well, just one, and this guy makes a point, which is kind of what this is all about. It's not about the gay community, right? And he reads, "We should all be treated fairly, and the fact that one special interest group," I guess he's dubbing that the gay community, I don't know if I would call it a special interest group, "gets preferential treatment makes me feel discriminated against. I hope you go all the way with this, and if you need a signature from me, I'll provide it." But,
So you have support.
I do.
And you clearly have
absolutely.
support.
Yes,
So we kind of
And
are all
I think
on the
we
same
have
page.
we have to, as a community too, as a community as a whole, we have to understand that upholding the rights of equality doesn't take them away from somebody else.
Right.
And like you said, it's
Right.
important that people can express their opinions.
Yeah.
We don't have to agree.
Right.
And you know, there's one other side of it too, is that I think sometimes there is an animal side to people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, you
just a
know,
little.
Lord of
and
the
we don't know where
Flies.
those people have their journey and why they have, why they're the way they are. But you know, if you beat a dog enough times, it'll become mean. You know, and that animal thing will come out in people too. And I think that it's important to understand that even those people who express things that way, we don't know why they feel that way. We don't know why they're expressing. We have to have understanding for that as well. And we just need to be big people. And you know, also we have to understand that when we express an opinion that's not popular, there is consequences to it, and people are going to say what they need to say about it.
But there should
Be
be
opposed.
It
limits.
just needs to be respectful.
And we need to
respectful.
find, if we're really going to be progressive and be all that we can be as Canadians, we need to find a place where the avenues that we're using to express our lifestyle are appropriate. And this is where I'm coming from. These crosswalks are not appropriate for what is wanting to be accomplished.
And that's your,
And I don't discriminate
your
against what
opinion.
you want to accomplish and what you have accomplished. I think you've done a good job. I'm here to say that. But this particular avenue, I feel, is inappropriate.
And that's your right to your opinion.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for today. So if you want to
Okay.
join the conversation, you can hashtag on the DL. Hashtag. What was the other hashtag? Oh, yeah. If you
I
want,
like that.
if you
Ask
wanna-
Wilbur.
Yeah. We'll have a double hashtag. Ask Nancy. Ask
Or Wilbur.
Yeah, or Wilbur on the DL.
Ask Nancy and Wilbur.
Now, is this out of line for me to say? Like, maybe we can just have like a group hug here?
She's feared. Wilbur, we'll get her some help later.
Come on. See, there we go.
Big hug.
Oh, we thought we had to come out of that with a hug. That was nice. That
See?
was a good moment.
Everybody needs a little hug sometimes.
That's right.
One of the biggest things from Wilbur's speech was, and that I found from looking at my first interview with Nancy alone, was the word lifestyle.
Right. Talking about that gay lifestyle.
Yeah, and I just assumed, again, that, you know, because it says the flag represents the LGBT lifestyle, and I had no idea that that was an offensive term to that population. Did you?
I guess it could be considered that. You know, if because people sort of, you know, you guys talked about a little bit about sort of the pride parades in the bigger centers and how they can be quite ostentatious and over the
Right.
top, and people, I think, equate that to lifestyle.
Right.
Whereas, you know, I mean, as Wilbur said, you know, people, everyday people going about their everyday lives is the gay lifestyle.
Yeah.
For the vast majority.
And by saying lifestyle, you're insinuating that it's a choice to be gay. So my apologies for my ignorance there, I had no idea. And that's why we have to keep having these conversations so that we are educated on things that we might not really know about.
That's right, and good for you for getting in there and like I say, following your journalistic
Forcing them
instinct.
to hug.
That was a moment. That was good. I'm proud of you, kid.
I'm going to take that in slow-mo and put some music under it and just
let's
loop
dial
it.
dial that back a little. All
Well,
right.
I just want to thank Wilbur and Nancy so much for coming in studio, because that's very brave of them to, you know, put themselves out there, because it is hard to, on either side, to voice your opinion publicly like that. So thank you guys so much.